The transport shuttle hummed softly as it descended through the thick atmosphere of Alia, the faint blue hue of the planet's sky deepening with each passing second. Ethan sat by the window, his breath fogging the glass as he stared out at the alien landscape below. Vast stretches of shimmering forest filled with towering trees and crystalline rivers sprawled beneath the ship. He felt a mix of awe and anxiety settle in the pit of his stomach. This was his new home, at least for the next year. Alia, the planet where the very air seemed to vibrate with emotions, the home of a species of aliens who could sense the innermost feelings of those around them. He adjusted his jacket. The crispness of Earth's military-style fabric an odd contrast to the flowing robes and natural fabrics he saw the aliens wearing as they moved gracefully around the port below. In a few minutes, the shuttle would land, and Ethan would begin his part in the intergalactic exchange program, a chance for Earthlings and aliens to learn from each other, to bridge the immense gaps in their cultures. But Ethan wasn't thinking about cultural exchange or diplomacy right now. His mind was racing with thoughts about his new roommate, a female alien named Lyra. The aliens were renowned for their perception of emotional energy. They could feel the flow of emotions in others as clearly as humans could sense warmth or cold. To them, emotional honesty was not a choice. It was an instinct. Ethan had spent months preparing for this, learning everything he could about their customs and ways of life, but no amount of preparation could truly ready him for living among them, especially not with someone who could potentially read his every mood. A subtle jolt brought him back to reality as the shuttle touched down. The doors hissed open, and Ethan gathered his things, stepping out into the warm, fragrant air of the alien capital city, Vuren. The smell was different, sweet but earthy, with a sharpness that reminded him of a forest after the rain. He shouldered his bag and followed the guide waiting for him. As they walked through the city, Ethan couldn't help but marvel at the way it blended with nature. The buildings' smooth curves and glass-like surfaces seemed to grow out of the earth itself, entwined with the roots of giant trees. The aliens moved gracefully along the streets, their long limbs and ethereal blue skin giving them an almost dreamlike appearance. Every now and then, he caught a glance from one of them, their large, dark eyes seeming to linger on him for a moment longer than he was comfortable with. "They can feel your nervousness," the guide said with a knowing smile, as if reading his thoughts. "They're curious, that's all." Ethan managed a tight smile in return, feeling a bead of sweat trickle down the back of his neck. He'd always been a private person, even on Earth, and the idea of living among beings who could sense his emotions unsettled him more than he cared to admit. What if they could feel his fear, his doubts? Would he be able to hide anything at all? They arrived at a sleek, rounded structure set within a grove of trees. "This is where you'll be staying," the guide said, gesturing to the building. "Your roommate, Lyra, is inside. She's expecting you." Ethan took a deep breath as he stepped inside. The interior was surprisingly warm, with soft lighting and smooth organic walls that seemed to flow like water. His eyes were immediately drawn to the figure standing at the far end of the room. Lyra. She was taller than he expected, even for an alien, with long, lithe limbs and skin that glowed a soft shade of blue under the lights. Her silver hair, braided intricately down her back, shimmered as she turned to greet him. But it was her eyes that caught him off guard, large, almond-shaped, and the color of the night sky. They seemed to see right through him. For a moment, Ethan forgot to speak. "Welcome, Ethan," Lyra said softly, her voice melodic and soothing. She smiled, though there was a flicker of something else. Curiosity, perhaps, in her gaze. "I hope the journey wasn't too taxing." Ethan cleared his throat, feeling heat rise in his cheeks. No, it was fine. The planet is beautiful." Her smile widened slightly. "I'm glad you think so. You'll find that Alia has much to offer, not just in its landscapes, but in its people." She gestured to the small table near the window where sleek, minimalist furniture was arranged. "Please, make yourself comfortable." As Ethan sat down, he felt a strange sensation wash over him, as if the air in the room was subtly shifting. Lyra's eyes flickered, and she tilted her head slightly. "You're anxious," she said gently, not as a question, but as a statement of fact. Ethan blinked, momentarily startled. Yeah, a little." There was no point in denying it. Lyra nodded, her gaze softening. It's understandable. Our worlds are very different. But I think you'll find we're not so different when it comes to what matters. Ethan let out a breath he didn't realize he was holding. Despite his initial tension, something about Lyra's presence put him at ease. It was as if she could soothe the sharp edges of his nerves just by being near. Still, he couldn't shake the feeling that she could sense far more than she let on. For the rest of the evening, they talked about the practicalities of living together, schedules, routines, and the peculiarities of each other's customs. Ethan learned that aliens had a deep connection to their surroundings, often spending hours of meditation to align themselves with the emotional energy around them. In contrast, Ethan found himself feeling more self-conscious, unsure of how much his own inner thoughts and feelings were being laid bare before her. As the conversation wore on, Ethan grew more comfortable with Lyra's presence, though a part of him still held back. It was hard to open up fully when he knew she might be able to sense every flicker of doubt or hesitation. Eventually, the sky outside darkened to a deep indigo, and Lyra rose from her seat. "It's late. You should rest," she said, her voice soft but firm. "Tomorrow will bring new experiences." Ethan nodded, standing up and stretching. "Thanks, Lyra. I appreciate it." She gave him a small, knowing smile. "We'll talk more in the morning. I'm sure there's much we both have to learn." As Ethan retreated to his room, he couldn't help but feel a strange sense of anticipation. There was something about Lyra, something that stirred emotions in him he couldn't quite understand. It wasn't just her beauty, though she was undeniably stunning. It was the way she seemed to perceive things beyond the surface, to see him in a way no one else ever had. Lying in bed, staring up at the soft, glowing ceiling, Ethan wondered just what the future held for him here on Alia. Something told him that this journey was only just beginning, and that Lyra would play a far bigger part in it than he ever could have anticipated. There, seated on a smooth stone by the edge of the garden's pool, was Lyra. Her back was straight, hands resting lightly on her knees, and her silver hair cascaded down her shoulders, catching the morning light. The hum came from her, a soft, melodic vibration that seemed to harmonize with the sounds of nature around her. Ethan hesitated in the doorway, unsure if he should interrupt. The moment felt private, sacred even, but as if sensing his presence, Lyra's humming slowed and then faded. She turned her head slightly, just enough for him to see her profile. "You can come closer," she said quietly, her voice calm but not cold. Ethan stepped forward, moving cautiously across the soft grass. He stopped a few feet away from her, uncertain of what to say. "I didn't mean to, earlier, I didn't know the door wasn't locked." Lyra turned fully to face him now, her expression unreadable, her eyes reflecting the still waters of the pool. "It's not your fault. I should have knocked." There was a long pause, filled only by the gentle rustling of leaves and the distant call of a bird-like creature. Then she added, "But I wasn't prepared for what I felt." Ethan's brow furrowed. "Felt?" She looked at him, her gaze unwavering. "When I saw you, vulnerable, unguarded, it stirred something in me, something I didn't expect." She glanced away for a moment, her voice softer. "Aliens are trained from childhood to control the flow of emotions, to interpret, not impose. But yesterday, I felt too much." Ethan sat beside her, close enough to feel the warmth radiating from her, but not so close as to intrude. "Was it bad?" "No," she said after a moment. "Just intense." They sat together in silence, watching the ripples in the pool. Then Ethan asked, "What does it mean for you?" Lyra was quiet for a time before answering. "It means the boundary between us is thinning. The more time we spend together, the more I will feel your emotions as my own. That is the risk and the beauty." Ethan nodded slowly. "And is that something you want?" She turned to him again, her eyes deep and searching. "I don't know yet, but I'm willing to find out." Ethan felt a strange calm settle over him. Not the absence of tension, but its transformation into something new. Uncertainty, yes. Curiosity, definitely. But also connection. He smiled. "Then let's figure out together." Lyra returned his smile, and for the first time, it reached her eyes. The space between them seemed to hum, not with awkwardness or confusion, but with quiet understanding. A new chapter had begun. And this time, neither of them was alone.